Thank you. We're going to be talking about relaxation, exercise, and nourishment. But before we start into that, I'd like to tell you that I was advised it would be more graphic if you cartwheeled out. And I decided against that. You know, I say a mass for our students at Loyola in Chicago, and a non-Catholic came with a Catholic to one of the masses. And everything I did, the non-Catholic would say, "What does that mean?" And the Catholic would explain it. And when I took off my watch at the beginning of the sermon, the non-Catholic said, "What does that mean?" And the Catholic said, "Not a thing." What we were saying before about loving yourself, the main thing, the main lens attitude in all of us is love of self. And that's very important. Now, one of the things that love of self does is affirm whatever is good. So keep a list, all right, in your center drawer of your desk of the good things about you, the gifts, the lover's count of blessings. And then the second thing that love does is try to understand, not judge, not harshly condemn, but to understand your weaknesses. But the third thing that love does, love of self does, is try to fulfill your own needs. And we're going to talk about the physical needs of relaxation, exercise, and nourishment now, but these are needs that love does, love fulfills, love would take care of. And so it's extremely important, I think. You know, when they talk about relaxation today, they always talk about stress, the amount of stress that's in a person's life. And you get the impression that it's something like a tightrope walker walking along a tightrope, and he's got a balance bar. And if the balance bar gets too far off on one side, he'll fall off on that side. Too far off on the other side, he'll fall off on that side. But he's got to keep it in balance. And we have to keep stress in check in the same way. That if we get too much negative stress, we just fall off one side or the other of balance. And then it takes time to recuperate, right? Now, what I would like to suggest is that there is some stress that's good. There's some stress in everybody's life that's good. It gets you going. They compare it to a bow on a violin string. If there's no contact at all, if there's no stress at all, you don't get any music. But if there's too much stress, all you get is screeching. So there have to be positive and negative stressors in a person's life. And the positive stressors get you going. They're good, they're healthy, they're not negative, and the negative stressors are the bad ones. They siphon off your energy, they siphon off your strength, they siphon off your peace of soul, and you get all upset. I know when I'm under when I'm under stress, the slightest thing bothers me, and I go, ooh. But when I'm very relaxed, I can laugh at the very same things that upset me under stress. And so I realize, you know, I've got to learn to relax. It's terribly important. Because the picture gets so close up to your face when you're under stress that you just react inordinately. And then you're sorry. You have to apologize. I'm sorry I got so upset about that. But anyway, it is very important to learn how to keep stress under control in your life. And one of the ways is to eliminate negative stressors from your life. If you can do that, fine. But you can't eliminate them all. You know, huh? There are stressors in a person's life that you just have to live with. And now what you have to do is convert the negative stressors into positive stressors. For example, one of the stressors that affects almost everybody is resentment. Resentment. I resent something a person said or did, and that keeps my blood pressure elevated and keeps my digestion turbulent. Everything inside of me is bad because of the resentment I bear. I'm going to get even. And it really helped me, and I hope it helps you to know that the human brain records everything that's ever happened to us, including prenatal experiences and birthing experience. Everything is recorded up there on that 3-pound, 3-ounce brain of ours. Isn't that amazing? They say that if they ever build a computer that can hold all the messages and memories the 3-pound, 3-ounce human brain is now holding, it'll be 10 stories tall and cover the state of Texas. Now, that's a big state, you know. You heard about the Texan who went to Australia and they showed him a herd of cattle? He said, it's about the size of my freezer. I got more meat in that in my freezer. And they showed him the Pacific Ocean. He said, wow, that's about the size of the pool in my backyard. And with that, a kangaroo bounded out of one of the bushes. And this Texan said, what in tarnation is that? And someone in Australia said, don't you have grasshoppers in Texas? But anyway, the human brain holds all those messages and memories for a lifetime inside of us. And when I learned that, when I read that, about the quadrillion messages that are being held by the human brain that go into effect every time you go into action, I thought, I'll never judge anybody again. I really, how do I know what's on your brain? How do I know what's on my brain? I don't. And so I can't judge you, and I can't be too harsh with myself either. It's something that is possibly on the brain. I don't know what it is. But if you convert resentment into understanding, you can convert resentment into love. Hey, I want to help you. I don't know what the problem is, but I do want to help. And I hope that what I'm doing, what I'm saying will help you with your problem. But the one thing I don't want to do, is make a judgment. So you're converting the negative stressor of resentment into a positive stressor. You're eliminating the resentment by trying to be more understanding, by trying to be more forgiving. I don't know what's on your brain. Maybe if what's on your brain were on my brain, I would have done the same thing. So I really don't know. But I think that converting a negative stressor into a positive stressor like that, like resentment, would help a great deal. And I have a priest friend I got to tell you about who says, I'll bet that at the bottom of every resentment, and I don't have much to bet, but I'll bet everything I own, at the bottom of every resentment is a judgment. And I started thinking about that, and I thought, I think he's right. I think he's right. I think that at the bottom of every resentment is a judgment. And you can't judge people. I remember the first retreat I gave to high school boys in Cleveland, Ohio. The boys came in, and I said a prayer, and I turned around. The kid in the second row goes, eh. And I looked at him, and I thought, hey, I may not be Fulton Sheen, Sonny, but how about giving me a break? All I said was a prayer. And then the same boy grimaced and groaned all through the talk. And then at the end, I said, it was a retreat house. I said, would you please go to your rooms now? And after 10 minutes in chapel here, thinking about what I've just said, and this creep, I'm walking out the center aisle, this creep is following me. And I'm thinking, hey, Sonny, don't get too close. I'm sending off homicidal rays here. You could be electrocuted. And he grabbed my shoulder and spun me around, and I hit him with a big look, 75 pounds, you know. I said, what? He said, Father, I'm going to be sick. So I took him to a bathroom, and he was sick. And I said, when did you get sick? He said, I said, whenever they transport the troops, I always toss my cookies. And I thought, oh. So I said, well, listen, you go up to your room and get in bed, and I'll come up in about 10 or 15 minutes just to make sure you're all right. And he said, no, I'm all right, Father. And he was the jumpiest, most hyperactive kid I've ever seen. And I went up to his room, and even under the bed clothing, he was bouncing around. And I said, when did you get sick? He said, on the bus coming out here. And I said, were you sick during the talk? He said, oh, yeah, I was green. I thought I might let fly right in chapel. And I said, oh, my gosh, why didn't you get up and leave? And you know what he said? Father, I couldn't have done that. That would have disturbed you. So as I was leaving his room, he said, thanks for being so kind. And I thought, if the kid only knew what kind. But that's converting a negative stressor into a positive stressor, and there are a lot of different techniques. But you have to do that. You have to convert what's negative into your life into what's positive. If you see rebelliousness of adolescents, and you say, part of it, you know, is they're just trying to show that they are persons on their own. It's normal. It's a natural, normal thing that kids go through. There's a certain amount of rebelliousness. And all of a sudden, it takes the sting out of it. You know, stop asking, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? Everybody also knows that as stress accumulates in a person's life, the emotions get involved. and then the immune system shuts down and you get sick. Everybody knows that the immune system shuts down as the emotions get excited, the negative emotions, the negative stressors. So negative stress in a person's life can also produce a lot of physical sickness because the immune system is not rejecting all these foreign bodies. Another way of relaxing from stress is by breathing. Deep, healthy breathing. You know, they say we use about only 10% of our lungs. And I often ask why whales need to come up so infrequently. Well, they use all their lungs, but we use only the top 10%. But to breathe deeply is very relaxing. And to say things to yourself, I am relaxed. I am relaxed. And pretty soon you feel very relaxed because of the power of suggestion is tremendously important, and you're suggesting that to yourself. I'm relaxed. That's a very important thing, to learn how to control stress either by eliminating the negative stressors or converting them into positive stressors. So that the stress level in your life goes down, because when stress is up in your life, everything goes wrong. Small things become large things. The immune system shuts down. You get sick. It's just a mess. So it's very important, as a part of loving yourself, to keep stress under control. The second thing that I think love of self fulfills is your physical need for exercise. I got to tell you a story that one time I used to run around the track at the school that I teach at. And one day I noticed cameras out there photographing me. And it said Channel 2 on the side. And I thought, oh ho, Channel 2, huh? And so I was hamming it up, and then I said to the man at the control, I said, am I supposed to smile or wave to you as I pass by? No, he said. He had no idea who I was. And he said, we're doing a short on Channel 2 on men in the midlife crisis. And I said very innocently, why did you come to me? I haven't come to midlife yet. And you know what he said? Oh, come. But anyway, we got to talking about the men in the midlife crisis. And it occurred to me that the best book on the subject that I have read says that the #1 antidote for a midlife crisis is exercise, physical exercise. What does physical exercise do? I know it helps me, and I can't think of spending a day of my life without some form of physical exercise, either running or swimming or doing something or taking a healthy long walk. Otherwise, I'll just simply get too tense. What does physical exercise do? Why does it help in the midlife crisis? What it does is it clears out the chemicals of tension in our body. It uses up all the chemicals of tension, but it also starts, and this is something that medical science has just stumbled upon in the last 20 years, is there are what are called neurotransmitters, little chemicals that the brain and sometimes the stomach manufacture. And one of them is called the endorphin family. And the endorphin family is kind of nature's own morphine. It makes you feel real good. And they found out that the production of endorphins are stimulated by two things: by meditation, by emptying the mind, and by exercise. So exercise not only clears out the chemicals of tension, but produces in us the production of endorphins. And you feel real good. You know, a lot of our track people at school, I ask them, did you ever get runner's high? And they all say universally, oh yeah. Yeah, it's when the endorphins kick in. And when the endorphins kick in after exercise, you just feel real good. I know that when I used to run around our track, I would come in and try to think all the depressed thoughts I could think of. And I could never think of one that would make me depressed. And I just felt so good after exercise. And so I strongly recommend to people, and you know, it's a funny thing, young people know this. They know that if they work out, either by running or swimming or lifting weights or whatever they're doing, they feel much better. And they think much more clearly. So that relaxation, exercise, and the final thing is nourishment. And again, I have my students do journals for me. and we have them react to this very question of relaxation, exercise, and nourishment. And they all say, when I'm eating junk foods, when I'm eating carelessly, my energy level goes down, I get sleepy and loggy and so forth. But when I eat the right foods, oh, I feel so much better. And I know this is true. One nutritionist wrote that, yes, we all know this, that if you eat a nutritional diet, you'll feel much better. It'll prolong your life, everything. When they deprive certain beings of vitamin B or something, they have brain seizures. And you just need to have the right kind of nourishment. I was at a gas station recently, and it said, drive your engine clean. Try high-octane gas. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's what high-octane gas is equivalent to a good diet. As it goes through your system, as it cleanses it out. So that it's very important, I think, if you're going to love yourself, to relax and to exercise properly and to eat the proper foods to nourish your body. I want to say, if the engine isn't properly fueled, if your body isn't properly nourished, you're going to have a bumpy ride through life. And so I think this is very, very important that as part of love of self, that you pay attention to the amount of relaxation, converting the negative stressors into positive stressors, eliminating those that are purely negative, if you can, and to adopt some techniques like deep breathing or yoga or something that will keep you relaxed and keep everything in perspective. I know that for most people, as you get tense, as you get stressful, things come up close to your face and you just react inordinately, and you're sorry about it later. And also, exercise cleans out the negative chemicals of tension in your body and produces the stimulation of these morphines in the brain, and you feel really good. And if you eat the right diet, you've got it made. So I think that what this is a physical thing, but we used to differentiate, I think, the body from the soul. A lot of the early Christian writings are a little embarrassing, but the beautiful soul is imprisoned in the ugly body, and you know, but that's too bad that they thought that. But now we know that these are not to be distinguished. That body affects soul, soul affects body, spirit affects body and soul. And so we used to think if you had something wrong with your body, you went to a doctor. If you had something wrong with your soul, you went to a priest. And now we know they're one. And here's Loretta Brady to help you understand or to exercise, to process these ideas on relaxation, exercise, and nourishment. Loretta?
Hello, okay. Thanks. I hope you're remembering that one of the things we were pushing here is taking full responsibility for your lives. So what I'm going to do is suggest that we get in touch with some of the negative stressors and then begin to convert them into positive energy. But the way we have to do that is first by saying, no, it's not the whole world that's causing this. It's my life, it's my stress, I can do something about it. But just to take a bit of an inventory, what I'd like to do is name some typical, common, everyday, we all have it sometime or other in our lives, stressors, and see if you can react yourselves to which ones might be yours for today. It might be a stress in your life right now. It's not one you carry with you all the time. But as I name these various possible stressors, would you just listen to your body? Notice, for instance, if you just sort of flinch when I say this word, and give yourself a little inventory experience there, and see if you can get in touch with what might be some of the stresses current in your life right now. Okay? Time. Money, job, family, conflict, workload, religion, aging, solitude, talents, friends, holidays, schoolwork, your body, failure, success, neighbors, leisure time, my schedule, co-workers, personal goals, pleasing others, saying no to others, meeting others' expectations. Did any of you get any vibes registering on your inner? Yes, yes, yes. I hope you didn't get all of the above. Well, maybe you've got a little list there. Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. I hope at least 1 so that you can apply some of the things we're talking about today. I would like to pick one out of that list that even as I read them off to you, came to my mind and I could feel the tightening. And that for me is my schedule, which is a tense thing, a stressful thing for me just right now, just these days, the last several months, let's say. Even when I think about, and I look at, let's say, what's on my calendar, I remember what's on my calendar, and I get that picture in my mind, I get tense. I can feel it in my arms, and I can feel it in my legs, and so forth. That's the kind of registration you need to identify. That is definitely a stressor in your life. If you asked me last March about my schedule, say, well, it's kind of full, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and everything's okay. And I know even my body wouldn't have registered any tightness, because it's, life's going along. But if you asked me today, I would definitely register that. So if you had that reaction to any of those, that's a stress right now. There's no 2 ways about it. Why it is could be a lot of different reasons, but we're really just trying to identify and then to convert the stress into positive energy. So let me tell you what I've been trying to do. I'm still in the process of it. What I've been trying to do in terms of converting the stress, the negative stress of my schedule. First, get in touch with the feelings that are behind the stress for you. And right now, I know that when I think of my schedule, I get angry, just really angry. And I just want to punch, and I think, who? What? Not really anybody. I just want to get angry. It shouldn't be. I don't want it. I don't like it the way it is. And all kinds of anger statements come forth. And then I get into why is it anger that I'm having, like we talked about in the last segment. Why anger? And I think because it's not the way I want it to be. This is summertime in my life, at least. I want it to be summertime, and in summertime, schedules are supposed to get much easier. And my schedule's not easier. So I'm mad, like a 2-year-old. I don't want to go to bed. So I'm mad, and the anger is in me. Then I want to take another look and say, okay, what can I do about it? I'm angry. It's my anger. I'm angry because I have this attitude that it should be the way I want it to be. That's my attitude. Now, do I go on being tense and angry and stubborn about it, or do I do something with it? I want to do something with it. So I want to take this and convert it. So I just take the issue, my schedule, and try and play around with it and think laterally, try different ideas out. And the first thing that came to my mind when I even thought of this to begin with was the title of that issue, My Schedule. It's my schedule. I ought to be able to do something about it. What about relaxation, nourishment, exercise? So I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do about it. Before I start my schedule for the week or the day, I'm going to put mentally, if not even writing it down, I'm going to put relaxation, nourishment, and exercise things down first. Before I get to all the phone calls I'm going to make, I'm going to go swimming first. I'm going to put those things on the schedule, and then I'm going to let what we call work and what I have to do, I'm going to let that fill in afterwards. If I don't get that done, I don't get that done. But I'm not going to put swimming way down at the bottom, because I'll never get to it. So just realizing that my schedule was my schedule, I was able to start rearranging everything on the chart, so to speak, and make it really work for me. And I gradually became much happier about the whole thing. I have about as much work to do that I had to do before, but I'm getting all the relaxation and enjoyment filled in there besides. And so it's not producing as much anger. As I said, I'm still in process with it. Let me see if someone here, one, maybe 2 of you, would be able to do something like that with one of your stressors. Maybe we can all help you too. But is there someone here who'd like to identify one of the stressors that came up for them that you reacted to? Yes, Colette.
Both the money and the job, being out of work and looking for work.
Okay. Now, being out of work and looking for work is a reality, and we can't sometimes change that when we want to. But can you tell us what kind of feeling that's producing in you?
Anxiety, feeling like I've made some wrong decisions on some of the interviews I've been on, or didn't project myself correctly.
Okay, so you're sort of second-guessing yourself and wondering if it's you, and then you probably get more and more unsure of yourself as you do that. Would you like a few pieces of feedback from the group here, not in terms of you personally, but the issue?
Sure.
Okay. Are there people here who've been out of a job at different times in your life? Okay. In any group of people you can find that. Are there some of you here who might have ideas for Colette in terms of helping her take that negative energy, which as she's describing it is starting to sort of pull her down, and use it in positive ways? Are there ways that you found that were positive when you were in that place?
I came to realize when I was going for an interview that before I even got there, and the person doing the interview even knew me or I answered any questions, that perhaps because of my sex or the way I looked or the way I dressed was not in that person's repertoire of who he or she wanted. And so there was nothing I can do about his judgments or her judgments or what they wanted. And because I wasn't what they wanted for that job did not make me a bad person. It did not make me incompetent. And I used to tell myself, I am competent, I am who I am, and I have gifts to offer. And because someone who's interviewing me doesn't need my gifts, doesn't negate my gifts.
Wonderful, Kay. That's a good piece of positive energy. Now, it may or may not be possible for you to take that in right now, but at least it's there as a possibility. Does anyone else have a positive energy suggestion, something you could do in a positive way? Yes, Laura.
When I had been looking around for a job, I really, really thought of, well, it was hard sometimes because it is at a time when you're down, but I really thought of what the job would be like when I had it, and I realized that that job is going to be the perfect job for me. And I can't tell you how many I didn't get that my friends did get, and I thought, I wouldn't do good there. I look at them now, and I thought, I wouldn't do good in that job.
So I might not be getting a job now, but when I get the job, it's going to be the one I want.
For me.
Yeah. And on a day-by-day, moment-to-moment basis, maybe some ideas that you could incorporate that would be positive is exercise. Find ways to relax. You can't do much about it. You went on all the interviews you could do today, and then you need to do the other pieces, the relaxation, the nourishment, the exercise, to decrease the stress that's associated with a very real stressful piece. Good. Thank you, Colette. In the next segment, we're going to deal with an issue, very common word, love. But what we're going to deal with is how it is that even though we want to be loving, we so often don't turn out to be as loving as we would like to be. But how we can, in fact, begin to make ourselves much more the person we would like to be in terms of a real act of love to other people. Thank you.